welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about the key to a successful co-founder relationship. We'll be covering what is a co-founder, where do you find your co-founder, how do you evaluate this relationship and then make it work. So quite literally, a co-founder is somebody who starts your business with you. Choosing the right co-founder is one of the most important decisions that you will be taking in your journey. I mean, sure, can you do this on your own? Of course, you can do this on your own, but your journey is extremely hard to run and start a business. And if you're on your own, it's just twice as hard. Most of the successful startups have co-founders. So I would recommend having a co-founder. And here are some of my reasons why I recommend this. One is productivity. When you start a startup, moving fast is very critical. So when you have a 2 people, 3 people team as co-founders, you can move twice or thrice as fast. Also, brainstorming becomes very effective. You could bounce ideas off each other. You always have that advantage of another person's perspective when you're dabbling with an idea. Also, accountability, when there's somebody else to check in on you, it just helps to be more disciplined and diligent with your deliverables. Next is moral support, which is a huge and sometimes understated component. Just having someone around who understands what you're going through, who can pick you up in your lows and can celebrate with you, is empathizing with you, is very, very helpful. So now if you are convinced that having a co-founder is the right way for you, where do we find them? So the best place to start is with people that you know. So your friends, your classmates, your colleagues. If you are in college, it's the best place to find your co-founder because these are the people you're working with, you've done projects with. Working in a company, look to your co-workers who are smart, compatible. Beyond that, look in your acquaintances, your network for somebody who you feel would be a right companion for you. Start by just taking a very minimum liability project with them. Just work on it, see how you work together, where there are lesser commitments, and you can gauge as to what your working relationship with them is like. I would also recommend LinkedIn as a platform where if somebody's portfolio matches your interests or you guys are very similar and you think that this is the person you can build something with, you can just reach out to them. There are actually also platforms online which are very similar to speed dating, where you kind of get to have a 10 to 15 minute interaction with somebody who's also looking at starting out in the startup world. So it's a good space to meet like-minded people and also meet people who share the same interests that you do. Sometimes you might think that something is important, but it's actually not. Like founders think that they need a partner who could probably do fundraising for them or have complementary skill sets, which actually is not so important. The most important thing is to align on the previous points that I've mentioned in this video. It's more important to align on them than have the other skill sets. All of that can be learned. You can learn how to fundraise, you can develop skills, but being compatible is much more valuable than the skill set. There could be an exception to this, obviously, because if you have a tech company and you're a non-technical person, it's highly recommended to get a tech co-founder. People usually early on don't want to split their equity or for whatever reasons hire agencies. One, agencies are very expensive from day one. Also, they're not really aligned with you. There are a lot of problems that happen in that equation. So if you are a tech company and you're not a coder, you should definitely consider getting a technical co-founder on your side. Okay, now since we have all that covered, let's talk about how do you evaluate your partner once you've met people. This might sound extreme, but a co-founder relationship is actually like a marriage. It's very important to get this one right. In many cases, you'll end up spending more time with your co-founder than you'll actually be spending with your spouse. So here are some conversations to have early on to be aligned and on the same page. So one is goal and values. Why do you want to do a startup? What is your motivation behind it? Next is stress. It's important to talk about how each one handles stress, and you have to evaluate how could you help the other person in a stressful situation, whether you're not comfortable with their method of dealing with stress. Next is communication. You have to evaluate whether three of you or the two of you can have a honest communication, and what is your style of communicating. Some people want to solve it right there and there. Some people take a step back, think about things, and then they want to have a conversation. So the pattern of communication should be aligned. Next is finances, which is a very big aspect. It is very important to very early on have conversations about how far can a person go without drawing any salary. Do they have a timeline in their mind? Also, what is their relationship with money, and what does money mean to them? Lastly, commitment. It's important to understand how much is the other person willing to commit to your startup in terms of resources, time, how many hours do they want to invest in it, etc. There's no right or wrong answer to this, but in the start it's important to understand the commitment from both the sides so that you guys can be on the same page. And in the end, the best way to evaluate your relationship with your co-founder and your co-founder is doing a trial project together. Only way to find out if you could actually work together is by working together. To go about this is set a trial project of, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks, assign deliverables, who's going to do what, and who's going to own the project at the end of the trial. And in the end of the day, it is a leap of faith. It is risky, like your startup. So just find the right person who you can take the leap of faith with. Let's say you have found a co-founder after all the evaluation processes. Next big question is, how do you split equity? The general experienced advice is to just split equity equally. The reason for this is because your co-founder needs to feel valued, and both of y'all need to feel equally motivated to bring in everything and give it your 100%. But hey, it was my idea. But the truth is that the point in time that you had the idea is just such a small part of your journey. If things go well, you'll be in this equation for 7 to 10 years, and ideas is a cheap thing. And also it alters over the period of time. That versus having a relationship with your co-founder which is 100% transparent, trustworthy, and what a 50% brings to the equation is much more superior than the value of an idea. Some of the most common reasons people give if they don't want to split the equity. I started working on the idea 6 months before my co-founder did. My co-founder took a salary while I didn't. I'm older and more experienced than my co-founder. We need someone to tie break in an argument, which is a very fair point, but you don't need equity to solve this. I launched my MVP without my co-founder. My co-founder agreed to the smaller share. I raised thousands of dollars before my co-founder. Bottom line is that you've just started and there's a lot of work ahead of you. There is a lot of challenges ahead of you. So both of you all need to be equally motivated, invested, happy before you all get into this journey. Stay consistent. Now for the best part, when you found a co-founder, your equity is sorted, is how do you work with your co-founder? One of the first important things that you will hear in teamwork is communication. Communication is extremely important. It is important to have communication, even if you think that okay, this is something really small, but in the start when you're collaborating with somebody, even the smallest thing, it doesn't harm to have an open conversation about rather than not. Just a constant check to be on the same page, be aligned, you're checking in on your co-founder. One more important thing to discuss is milestones. People usually don't talk about it because it's assumed that the motivation is, once the motivation is aligned, that you guys have the same idea about certain milestones you want to achieve. But it's important to put it out there and discuss this, and ask your co-founder if you have any milestones set for yourself in terms of so and so needs to be achieved by so and so timeline, and if it does and if it does not, then how do we go about it. Next, and one of the most crucial elements in a co-founder relationship is trust. Most founder relationships, no matter what the reason is on the surface, break because of a lack of trust. Here are some of the tips that you could use to build trust with your co-founder. Firstly, trust people or your co-founders by default. because operating otherwise makes them feel very micromanaged. It doesn't install faith in the whole process. So just trusting people by default should be your approach. Second is, if you say you'll do something, do it. It's fine if you can't. Startups run at a very high speed and sometimes you kind of miss out on some things, but those things need to be communicated honestly often. Next is, give your co-founder the space to make mistakes. It's inevitable that both of you are going to make mistakes. You need to give room for the other person to make mistakes. Learn from your mistakes, fix them together rather than assigning blames to each other, and never say I told you so. Having clearly defined roles in the start of your journey immensely helps in your co-founders knowing exactly what they need to do and you knowing what you have authority over. So this helps in solving disputes. It helps the other person to take ownership of what they're doing. It's a great way to make the other person feel trusted. So these are some tips which will help you build a good foundation of trust to build your relationship on. Circling back to the topic of having defined roles and responsibilities of each individual, there are also some things that you should have ironed out right at the start, which is clear areas of ownership. Who is the final decision maker? This helps in times of dispute where whoever is heading the department has the final word. This just helps in managing the conflicts better. What happens if someone disagrees slightly versus strongly? So there should be a process in place for this. Set up a structure for accountability. This is extremely important when there are more than let's say 4 to 5 co-founders. There definitely needs to be a structure in place to check accountability. Respecting your co-founder in any situation is paramount to any good, successful relationship. You are in a situation of a conflict or a disagreement, or things have gotten really bad, in no situation should you be speaking disrespectfully with your co-founders. This not only helps in resolving the conflict in the right way, but also solidifies your relationship with your co-founder. So next time when you have a conflict, both of you all have already started at a different temperament and things thereon get easier. Lastly, some habits and structures you can put in place to have a healthy co-founder relationship are regular one-on-one schedule. So every time you have a topic that you want to speak to your co-founder about, which is not urgent and priority, you can add that to the list, and your regular one-on-one could be scheduled to have these conversations instead of interrupting each other during the work all the time. Have regular bi-directional feedback sessions where both of you all give each other constructive feedback in the flow, so you don't dread these sessions, but they're light and keep you motivated, also are a good learning session for you. Very good way to conduct these sessions is when somebody is actually giving you the feedback, either positive or negative. The other person doesn't speak at all, so it gives the chance to the person speaking to completely finish his point, talk about what he wants to convey without feeling interrupted or feeling attacked. Or do not responding gives you the time to take it all in, give it a minute to think about the things that have been told to you and use it in a positive way. It's extremely important in a co-founder relationship where you feel that it's okay for you to talk and give your co-founder the feedback and share your thoughts. Next, don't delay hard conversations. It's easier to catch them on earlier than let it become a big problem and then try to detangle it. Have the hard conversations on whenever they're required. Actually welcome the idea of having a coach when you're in a very tricky situation with your co-founder. These coaches are trained for situations like this, so when you are in a fix with your co-founder, it's very helpful if you have a coach on your side. Kind of has a neutral perspective and has seen a lot of these situations to give you the right advice. And in the end of the day, just remember that you and your co-founder both want the same things ultimately out of your startup. So all the disagreements and all the arguments, all the conversations are only done with good intentions. Okay, that's it for today's video. I hope this video was helpful to you, and if it was, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with your friends who are in a situation where they're looking for startups or have started out. Thank you so much for watching.